Blade Runner. This is one of my favourite games, movies, and it was also one of my favourite books. And that's the order I first experienced Blade Runner in. It was also made by one of my favourite developers at the time, Westwood Studios. They created the Command & Conquer series, and I loved the Command & Conquer original games and the expansions they made later on. They only ever made one Blade Runner game. One, but one good one. And when I was a kid, I bought this around 1998, and I was on a pretty strict budget back then. My pocket money didn't really stretch further than £10, so I had to stick to the budget games or the games that had been re-released. And I found Blade Runner in kind of a bargain bin, I think, at the time. I didn't know what to expect when I picked up Blade Runner because I didn't watch the film until many years after I fell in love with the game. And only then it was out of curiosity to see how the two compared. It was so different to anything else I had seen at the time. A movie made before I was born, but it gave me a glimpse into the future. Rarely had I seen an action hero so human, pun intended, getting the shakes after killing and drinking whiskey to cope with the shake. When I seen Deckard drinking whiskey straight, it made me want to be a whiskey drinker because of how cool and easily Deckard downs a shot of whiskey with his boss. Many years later, I wanted to know more about the Blade Runner universe, so naturally I read the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and it was then that I discovered that the book and the film are in parts quite different, but it also has to be read in context with Philip K. Dick's other books. And you might know more about Philip K. Dick than you think, or at least you might know more about his books that were adapted to film. So I thought I'd do a really quick rundown of some of the other Philip K. Dick books that have been made into films that you may not have known about. Next is a film starring Nicolas Cage based on The Golden Man, and as far as Nicolas Cage films go, this isn't actually too bad. Total Recall was based on a short story called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. A Scanner Darkly is based on a book by the same name, and both are very good and worth checking out. The Man in the High Castle is one of the most recent adaptations, which is a TV series on Amazon. Finally, Minority Report was based on a short story called The Minority Report. So those are just some of the movies that were based on the works of Philip K. Dick. And I'm sure, I mean, he was writing in the 50s, so I'm sure there are just so many other things that he influenced in the sci-fi world. But if you like Blade Runner, you'll love Dick. In fact, in conclusion, I love Dick. You probably don't realise how much you love Dick until now, and I think we can all agree that Dick is pretty great. Hope that's not taken out of context. A question you might have is, was the game based on the book or on the movie? Talk about Beauty and the Beast, it's both. The way the game handles this is you don't play as Deckard, you play as a guy called Ray McCoy, which I always thought was dangerously close to the real McCoy, and I doubt if that's a coincidence. But the game blends the book and the movie together really seamlessly, and it also kind of continues the conversation in some cases, and it expands on the Blade Runner universe. A great example of the game blending the book and the film together is when you meet Rachel, they tell you that the other detective just left, and this happens quite a lot. You feel like you're kind of on the heels of Deckard. When you're talking to Rachel about the owl, you tell her to check her Sydneys.
Owls are extinct. Who told you the model was real?
Dr. Terrell?
He's wrong, or lying. Check your Sydneys.
Now, if you didn't read the book, you wouldn't know that the Sydneys catalogue tells you which animals are extinct and how much real animals are worth to buy. But this is just one example of countless times where the book and the film blend together perfectly, and I think fans of both will find something they love in this game. And with that longer than usual intro out of the way, let's jump into the game and finally relive Blade Runner. Normally in my Let's Relive series, I do a bit of a summary of the first few hours of the game, almost like a Let's Play but condensed down into a couple of minutes. But with the nature of Blade Runner being a point and click and clue based game, I don't want to give away too many clues because I fear it might spoil the game for anyone that has never played it before. So I'm going to do my best to summarise the first few hours of Blade Runner to give you a sense of the types of things you do in the game, but at the same time try not to give away too many clues. Your first assignment is to investigate an animal crime. The first clue you find gives you a sense of your character's attitude and his sarcasm.
Find something?
Piece of chrome.
From a car?
No, I think it's horse chrome.
An interesting thing about this pet store is the name Runsetter actually comes from another character in Philip K. Dick's book, Ubik. So it's nice to see that the creators of this game have actually read other Philip K. Dick books as well, just for more influences. After poking about at some of the clues in the crime scene, you get a video disc, which later on you can analyse using your Esper system, either at your apartment or down at the police station. Finding and analysing these images is one of the key objects of this game. The main clues can be found in the pictures, but if you can't find them in the pictures, you can also find clues in the crime scene. An example of this is you can find a sushi menu from Howie Lee's in one of the images, but if you didn't find that in the image, you could also find a chopstick at the scene of the crime. So sometimes there are multiple clues that lead on to the next location. And that's really what this game is all about, finding clues that lead to new locations that then lead to new characters you talk to, and then more clues that lead to new locations. And within those locations there's just so much to explore, and they're just dripping with Blade Runner lore. For example, in the police station you can regularly visit your police chief. He'll give you a bit of a steer on what you should do next, and you should always report to him after the big incidences in the game. You can also visit the mainframe and shooting range, where you can use the Esper machine at the police station to analyse your photographs, or you can go into the shooting range and compare your scores to some of the other Blade Runners. So most of the clues we picked up at the animal crime scene point to Howie Lee. We go and interview him and find one of his chefs that is acting a little bit suspicious. Eventually, when you pick up enough clues, a chase will ensue. You can hunt this guy down and you choose whether or not to kill him. That's the great thing about Blade Runner. There are so many choices, and your choices really do affect what happens with the game's story. I'm told there are 9 different endings to this game, and I've only ever really unlocked a few of them because generally if your playstyle is the same each time you will have the same ending. But I've been exploring a few of the different endings and ways to play the game, and the more I looked into it, the more I appreciated just how much replay value this game has and how much stuff I missed when I first played this through. After retiring or choosing to set free your first replicant you hunt down, there'll be a cutscene with Gaff. After this part of the game, when I was a kid, I ran around looking for clues, aimlessly not knowing what to do next. That was until I went and talked to my lieutenant, who told me,
"Don't push it, kid. You look like you're beat anyway. Why don't you rest them dogs the rest of the day?"
At this point in the game, you literally have to go and rest. You have to go back to your apartment and sleep for the night, and that's what triggers the next part or the next chapter of the game. You also live in the same apartment or the same type of apartment that Deckard lives in, judging by the lift. And a cool thing I noticed is the voice actor for the lift is the same one used in some of the Command & Conquer games.
Apartments. Roof. Ground floor. Apartments.
McCoy, 88F.
88. Thank you.
When you get into your apartment, a monologue triggers that is very reminiscent to the Blade Runner film.
Zubin was the first Nexus 6 I'd come up against. There was something in his eyes, an almost primordial desire to live. Most of the 3s, 4s, and 5s I'd seen would just give up when you had them. But these 6s, they were a whole other breed.
This game is drenched in atmosphere, and standing on this balcony with the Vangelis music playing makes it feel like it's something straight out of the movie. In fact, I think that scene did happen in the movie. Very few games feel like their movie counterparts, but Blade Runner the PC game really does feel like you're watching the movie. And you feel like you're a detective. Before you go to bed, you notice the red light is flashing on your answer machine.
I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath. My wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told my wrath. My wrath did road.
That phone call was from the head android in the game, and it's actually an extract from A Poison Tree by William Blake. Ever since playing this game, that poem has stuck in my head, and there are so many other quotable lines and memorable characters in this game.
Pour me one.
Just one?
One, but one good one.
Some of these characters are unique to the game, in fact a lot of them are, but there are also some characters that are from the film, and it's fun to interact with them because it's almost like you're learning new stuff from the film, or seeing it from a different angle in parts.
Hey, wait, LPT, you there for something, huh? LPT? I'm very busy. Eyes won't wait for nothing.
And the same could be said with the locations. This game is packed full of locations from the movie. Some camera angles and scenes are lifted directly from the movie, but you also get to explore them. But not only that, they're interconnected in the city in such a way that you can walk from one location to the other. This becomes apparent in a later stage in the game where you no longer have access to your car. Another tool at your disposal in this game is the infamous Voico Mission. When you're interviewing some of the characters, you will have the choice to use this machine to determine whether or not they are replicants. I like this nearly as much as the Esper imaging machine, especially because of some of the questions they asked. There's a really good blend of questions from the book and the movie here, and also there are some that are unique to the game.
You have a little boy. He shows you his butterfly collection, plus the killing jar.
I take him to a psychiatrist. I talk to him first.
You've got a little boy. He shows you his butterfly collection, plus the killing jar.
I take him to the doctor.
There is lots more about this game I would love to talk about, however I feel that this work might not be a benefit to the public. And if I get into any more detail about the game, I may start getting into spoiler territory. So I'm going to end the video there, but I might make a second video where I do talk about some of the spoilers and some of the other things I love about the game. Also, some of my theories I have about the character you play as and his relationship to Deckard, which I've never actually seen referenced anywhere else online. At the time of making this video, I haven't seen the new Blade Runner. It just came out and I'm waiting for the hype to die down. Plus I didn't want anything I seen in it to influence this video because I wanted it to be just about the old Blade Runner. So all that's left to do is raise a glass to Blade Runner. You've always been there like a good friend would be. Cheers. Oh my god, who drinks this stuff straight? It tastes like burning. Cheers, Blade Runner.